Hi, everybody. I'm Nicole Mahalski, and I want to welcome you back to the Your Best Life Yet Summit. I'm so excited to introduce today's guest. Cathy Goulet has over 20 years' experience as a psychotherapist, author, life coach, and speaker. She has spent more than 12 years developing her signature approaches of empowering women to stand in their own power and helping couples attain their best relationships. Cathy's passion is to empower, awaken, and ignite souls and help people reclaim their life. She specializes in empowering women and couples to reach their full potential. So welcome, Cathy. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you all for having me. I do want to start by saying I have a really bad cold, so if I have to cough or I have to get a drink of my tea, just know that I apologize ahead for having to do that.
No worries. We totally appreciate that. We've all been there for sure. So I've asked Cathy here to really share her story. She's got an amazing, inspiring story of triumph over adversities. And I'd really just like to jump in and have you share some of that with us today, if that's okay with you.
Sure, Nicole. I usually start my talks and I talk about a 7-year-old little girl. And of course, that little girl is me. So my story goes that I grew up in an extremely tumultuous household. And the story that I usually tell is that this little 7-year-old girl, I woke up in the middle of the night to my father screaming that he was going to kill himself and he couldn't find the bullets and just screaming and screaming. And then I heard my father run into the bathroom. We had a really small little house. And I heard him run into the bathroom and I heard him crying. Just out of control, crying hysterically. And the little girl was so scared because it wasn't that she had heard her father say that he was going to kill himself multiple times. So that was nothing new, but him crying profusely was. And so he was crying and crying uncontrollably. And then all of a sudden ran out of the bathroom into my room, grabbed me up. And I remember having this long flannel nighties that we wore in the 70s. And he grabbed me up and said, and my mom said, "Bill, stop, what are you doing?" And my dad said, "I love her and I'm taking her with me." And my mom screamed in the most blood-curdling scream I've ever heard in my life. "Bill, put her down, you're going to hurt her." And then I knew in that moment, my dad was not only going to kill himself, but he was going to kill me because I loved him. And so I grew up in a household that was always up and down. Of course, he didn't. My mom and my dad played tug of war with me, and my mom somehow got me. We ran to the neighbor's house, called the police, that my dad was out of control, and we watched as the police and my dad had this talk outside. And then my dad went back in the house, and then we went back in the house. Interesting that back in those days, in the 60s and the 70s, police were called and there was something domestic. They didn't take people away, even though my dad had a gun. And, you know, as me and my sister watched from the window, we were sure that my dad was going to get shot, which didn't happen, thankfully. But as soon as the police left, my dad went in the house and my mom took us back in the house and we spent the night. And the next morning, I remember the only thing that my mom said to even acknowledge that it happened, because my dad was, you know, a pillar of society. He was a plant manager. He was a deacon in the church. So the one thing that my mom said as we left, the only acknowledgement that ever happened was, "Remember, we don't tell what happens in our house." And so that was my only acknowledgement of what happened. So I grew up in this household where there was this constant emotional, verbal, even at times physical abuse between me and my dad, because I ended up being the one that stood up to my dad in fear that I suffered with PTSD. I didn't realize it at the time. It wasn't until I was in my doctoral studies that I realized that I actually had suffered with post-traumatic stress disorder as a young child, and I had symptoms of PTSD. And had lived in this house because I'd lived in this house where there was always turmoil. There was always up and down. You didn't know what you were going to get. You could get your dad. My dad suffered from bipolar disorder, so I could get the dad that was came home and he was happy to see me. And, you know, I was always daddy's little girl. So, and there was just me and my sister and my mom. And so you never knew if that was the dad you were going to get that was going to play with you and have fun, or a dad who was going to be angry because of something and go into a rage. Or, you know, that night became another similar night where he would threaten to kill himself. So it was interesting living with my dad. I feel now that he was one of my greatest teachers in life, because as a small child, I knew and could see beyond what others knew and could see. About life, and I knew no matter how happy people were and how they looked on the outside, that there could be a lot going on the inside. So that story just goes into telling you that if I can do these changes, anybody can do these changes. Anybody can overcome our learning. And the interesting thing is that 20 years of doing therapy, and my area of specialization was women and couples, that I realized that the women that were coming to me, the most intelligent, successful, high-functioning, beautiful, amazing women that I was seeing had the same core wounding that I did. They had the same wounding, even though some of them grew up in idyllic childhoods, that my friends, my clients, my colleagues I worked with, we all had the same core wounding. And the realization that we, from society, had all been taught these same things. And the knowing that if I could overcome these things, especially in our love relationship, because I think as women, we're taught the most disempowering, unhealthy ways of being in our love relationship. And as you can see, I started life with this very unhealthy definition of the man who should teach me how to be loved by a man. The man who loved me greatly, my father, taught me this very unhealthy way of being. And my mom and my dad's relationship was extremely unhealthy as well. And so I learned the most unhealthy ways. But no matter what your childhood teaching, we seem to do the same things. And so that was interesting to figure out. And, you know, the only reason I tell my story is truly because if I can overcome that adversity, growing up in, you know, kind of the bottom layer of what you should learn about love relationships, you know, then anybody can do this. And so I believe wholeheartedly that you do the work that you teach, that if you haven't done the work, if you haven't overcome what you are teaching, then it's not yours to teach. And so I have walked the walk. I have done this work. I've helped thousands of clients through this work, and believe that it's the way we become empowered by getting rid of these innately almost programmed core woundings that hold us back and keep us unhealthy, and these unhealthy learning as well, the core wounding, but the unhealthy learning in relationship. And when we heal our core wounding, we unlearn what we've been taught in our life. And it's so subtle and it's so integrated that sometimes we don't realize we're even doing it. Most of the time we don't. But when we unlearn that and relearn a new way of being, then we change how we stand in the world. We change what we do in the world. And so that's part of my work, as well as opening our hearts. This work can't happen when we heal ourselves, when we heal our core wounding. One of the results is we get very connected to ourselves, and we open what I call the heart portal, because I love that name. And so where we become deeply connected to ourselves, but I believe that connection and to ourselves is the connection to divine or God or oneness, whatever you want to call that. And that's where our guidance, that's where our knowing comes in, our divine feminine gifts, our personal gifts that we come into this lifetime with. And that through these processes of healing and opening our heart, which is so innately who we are as women anyways, that through this process that we actually learn who we truly are and how to stand in our own power. And it's not in a way that disempowers men. It's not in a way that disempowers anyone. When you're fully empowered, you would never want to disempower anyone. And it's not the ways we've been taught. You're either the doormat or you're the, let me use the word bitch. You're either or. And that's not it at all. That's what we've been taught from this male lens that we've seen the world through. And the only reason we've seen the world through a male lens is that, remember, everything is so subtly ingrained that we have lived in a male-dominated world for so many years. And that the foundation of what we know is so male-oriented, is so from the male perspective. And it's not from the divine male perspective by any means. It's from the male perspective of what they've been taught through their wounding. And so we as women will say, oh, this is how we define ourselves, and this is why we need to be. And so often I see that it's still through the male lens. And when we get rid of those lenses and we can find out from our own foundation of who we are and relearn that, it's unlearn or learning and relearn or learn again what that is, because I feel like it's always there. It's always there in our knowing. It's always there in our heart. We just don't always believe it, connect to it, listen to it. And so when we do that, we become completely who we really started this life to be before all the wounding happened.
I agree. You brought up so many great points. I think the first thing that I really want to touch on is that the reason that you share your story with others is that so they know you're coming from a place that you've been there, you've been in those kind of situations, you can relate to them. And the biggest part, that you've done your work, you've actually taken the steps to heal and do what you need to do so that you can get better and help other people. And I think that's such an empowering place to come to, because I would guess that most of us have been in a situation where we were looking for that help. We were looking for, somebody to kind of guide us through a difficult situation or some trauma that we're experiencing. And there's all these amazing people that kind of come out to help you, but you can definitely tell the ones that have been through it. They can relate to you. They know exactly how you're feeling and what's going on. And to me, that just creates such an incredible connection and a way better healing process too, because you have that trust there. You're trusting somebody with the experiences that you have, because you know that they've been there, they've been in that situation or very similar to it. So I love that you're coming from a place of sharing your story to empower that message as well. I'd love to chat about, you talk about our core woundings quite a bit, and that we all have very similar ones. Can we maybe expand a little bit on that and explain to the audience what exactly that means and what it's all about?
Absolutely. And thank you for seeing that. Seeing in me that through doing the work ourselves, it's so much, just seeing that I've done my work, and also seeing that through doing the work and understanding that through doing the work ourselves, we are a walking example of what that is. And the relatability with other women, because we all do have the same core wounding. And what I came to realize over 20 years of doing therapy with men, women, and children was that we all had the same core wounding. But because my specialty was women, I saw it even manifest a little differently in women. And I saw it manifest in this huge way in relationship with their significant other, their love relationships. And it's one of the reasons that the first book in my series, called Standing in Your Own Power book series, the first book is about relationship for this reason. I believe if we can learn to do this in relationship, that we can learn to do it in any relationship. And I believe as women, we're relational beings. So our relationships in our lives are the most important things to us. And it's not our title, it's not what we do, but it's the relationships we have with our friends, our family, our love in our life, our children. Those are the most important things to us. And I don't think we should ever change that. That's what makes us beautiful and connected, and this catalyst for this beautiful change in the world. And the two core woundings that I found impede us the most and are the most significant and come to play in relationship like nothing else. First one is abandonment. And the second one is not good enough. And I know we've heard a lot about not good enough, not feeling worthy, but also not feeling, it's the self-worth, the self-esteem kind of combined, where we've been taught that we are not good enough to, not until we've lost the weight can we have the relationship that we want, or it's a way we conditionally love ourselves. It's so interesting that we can unconditionally love the dog, the kids, your grandparents, but unconditionally loving yourself, we always tend to have these conditions around it. I'll love you when, I'll be really happy with you when, when you fall flat on your face, you're like, oh, that's terrible. And I don't, and you withdraw the love, but that's when you need to have that love the most. And that's where the abandonment comes in. When I teach women that when we don't abandon ourselves, no matter what we've done or what's happened, that when we don't abandon ourselves, it doesn't matter who else does, that we will be strong and we will get through it. It doesn't mean it won't be hard. It doesn't mean it won't hurt. It means that when we don't abandon ourselves, it changes our life significantly. So abandonment, of course, starts in childhood, at the very beginning of life, in the realization that I think we all have as itty bitty children, that if we're not taken care of, if our parents abandon us, we would die. I think we innately have this knowing, even when we believe that children don't, we come in with this knowing that if we were abandoned by our caretakers, we would die. So we start to do things to abandon ourselves, our needs, our thoughts, because we're afraid that our caretakers will abandon us in some way. We become the really kind, sweet child because that's what our parents really like for us to do. And we want to please our parents. So it doesn't matter if we're angry at the other little child or we don't want to share. We'll do it anyways because we want to please our parents. So we start to learn to abandon our thoughts and feelings for what, our peer group, our parents, our friends, our family start. And it starts this cycle. And because abandonment is so subconsciously connected with our survival as an itty bitty baby or as a young child, that, if we were left, I think it's why we connect with the story of of Mowgli and the Jungle Book, because we all would love the idea that if we were abandoned as a child in the wilderness, we'd somehow survive, right? It's that beautiful, hopeful story of no matter, if we were abandoned, we'd still survive. There's some subconscious link to that feeling that we've all had as small children that we don't even realize in any conscious way that we've had. Typically, unless you are in a really abusive situation, you may have conscious thoughts of that as a young child, but most of us wouldn't even cross our mind that we've thought that or felt that way. And so it becomes a survival. Abandonment of ourselves becomes what we do to survive. And so abandonment also, that is the wounding that is interestingly plays out in our love relationships in so many ways, in that if we feel abandoned in our love relationship, that it starts to become, we start to panic, like it's our own survival. It's like we're getting, instead of getting rid of a partner or a partner getting rid of us, it's like we're going to not have oxygen to breathe. We start to feel like connected to our survival. And we think, logically, I've seen women go, how is that even? I just feel, you get that feeling, that panicky feeling. That means something survival is coming up. And so to me, it's connected with that. And our love relationships get connected with that abandonment in a huge way. Also gets connected to we're not good enough in a huge way. And let me give you an example of how it does this. And we've all probably had this happen. So we've been in a relationship. We probably especially early in our teenage years, we've all been in those relationships where we kept thinking, oh, I just need to break up with them. I don't even like them anymore. Oh, this is so unhealthy. And, whatever you say, I don't like them. They gross me out, whatever. And you're telling your girlfriends this, or you're telling yourself, and then the boy comes up to you, your boyfriend, that very day and goes, Cathy, I need to break up with you. And you go, oh, what? Break up with me? What do you mean? You were ready to break up with them. The minute they break up with you, you're like, oh, no, you can't. We can't break up. Maybe we shouldn't break up. I don't think that's the best thing. No, we've all played that out where we've gone, yeah, maybe we should break up. But there have been times, I guarantee, in most women's lives where they played that out, where they wanted to break up with somebody, thought it was the best thing to do, and then all of a sudden that person breaks up with them, and this abandonment and not good enough comes screeching at you. That core wounding comes screeching at you. And so you're going, you can't abandon me. You were about to abandon them, but now it's abandonment, and that wound plays out. And then you're going, oh my gosh, in your head it's playing out. Well, why aren't I good enough? What don't I do well? Am I not pretty enough? Does he like somebody else because they're better than I? I mean, all these things, whether we consciously think them or not, are what's playing out in our head and our thoughts. And so that's where you can see these two big core woundings come out in like this very, very non-subtle way at you. And so you can see that they affect us all. They're not something that's significant to me just because I've had significant wounding around love relationship with my dad doesn't mean I'm the only one that carries it. It's like every girlfriend I've ever known, every client that I've ever known has carried these. And so it creates this very unhealthy way of being in relationship that is interesting. And the other thing is, I think sometimes we're looking for our shining knight to heal us. We're looking for the guru to heal us. We're looking for the therapist to heal us. We're looking for our parent, our mom, our dad, some magical, mythical fairy godmother. Doesn't matter. We're looking for them to come and heal us. And emotionally, we can only heal ourselves. I believe when it talks about the dark night of the soul, that is our emotional healing that we all come in with, because society is so unhealthy. I mean, it's so terribly unhealthy at this point, and it always has been. And so I believe we are our only person that can heal ourselves emotionally, the only person. And so when I work with people, I guide them through their own healing. I don't do the healing. They are their healer. We are our most magnificent healer. And that's one of the truths I believe that has been held back from us, especially as women, because we have this magical, mystical, beautiful, nurturing side of us, these divine feminine gifts that we've come in with. And yet, it's been withheld from us in so many ways, and so many teachings and so many learnings, that this stuff has been withheld from us. And then we've been taught you have to go to somebody else to be healed. And I just say, BS. You are the only person that's going to heal you. I've worked with thousands and thousands of clients, and clients will go, oh, Cathy, thank you so much. And I will go, and I honestly mean it. You have done all of the work. I've held your hand. I've been there for you, but you've done your work, and you are the one you should be congratulating, because you did it. You did the healing on yourself. And I truly believe that. Absolutely. And that, there are so many learnings that we've had that disempower us in ways, kind of keep us hurted. These two wounds in particular are the two that keep us hurted by marketing campaigns, by everything from Jif, because choosy mothers choose Jif. Maybe I shouldn't say that, P&G. But, everything from peanut butter to, it is the dress who makes the woman. I call BS. When a woman comes in fully empowered, it doesn't matter if she has a burlap sack. She probably made that burlap sack look amazing on her, and she shines from within. And no one's looking. They might go, wow, that's an unusual dress, but gosh, isn't she amazing? And so they're not looking at what you wear. It's not about what designer bag you own. It's not about your status. It's not about the house you own, the house you live in, not about the degree you have. It's not about how nice or kind you are. It's not about your internal things. We get caught in this, so we get hurted and use those core woundings around abandonment and not good enough to kind of keep us on this treadmill of constantly proving to ourselves, bettering ourselves, proving to ourselves that we are good enough. And in doing that, we abandon ourselves. And so we have to go, oh, I'm on that treadmill. And we all get on there because we're like, oh, wow, that new concept that's out, or that new thought, that thing, I need to do that thing. I would be better if I did that thing. Or we all get on there, even if we get, this is really interesting, even if we get stuck on perpetually like being better or improving ourselves. And I'm not saying we don't want to improve ourselves. I'm saying that if it comes from a place of, it's a slight energetic shift. If it comes from a place of feeling as if we have to, or we need to overcome this, we got to do this, we've got to be better, we've got to be stronger, we've got to always heal ourselves, then we are constantly telling ourselves subconsciously that we're not good enough, because we're not saying that I'm great where I am, I love myself just where I am, but there's this thing I want to do because I want to see where it can take me. You see, the energetic shift is just a little different. But to me, I'm not abandoning myself and saying you're not good enough. I'm saying that thing, it interests me. I want to do it. I feel called to do that. I feel that guidance within myself really feels like that new concept, that new learning is something I want to do. Versus always feeling like you need to be better and you need to do better, and it's setting up you're not good enough to yourself, because actions speak louder than words ever could. And so if you're doing actions, if you're doing the actions of always trying to self-improve yourself, and you really push to do that, and you're not pushed, you seem driven in almost like in a competitive manner. You push yourself to constantly push and push and push yourself to constantly improve. Through actions, you're telling yourself, which speak much, much louder than words, that you're not good enough. And you're also abandoning yourself just the way you are. You're conditionally loving yourself. You're not unconditionally loving. So these are all concepts that I teach women, and they're so, as women, it's interesting. And I believe as humans, we are like this. We're very complex, and we think things have to be complex because of the complexity of who we are. But I find that our healing is really, really simple, and it's not ever as hard as we've made it out to be. It's just understanding. It's a lot of learning a new way, a new perspective to see things. And then once we have the learning and we know, we start to shift. So
you brought up so many great points in there. There's quite a bit that I want to touch on. I love the core woundings that you bring up about abandonment and not being good enough, because I definitely feel that that's stuff that a lot of us take on throughout our lives, and it starts so early. And then you talk about our feelings, and that we're taught not to basically acknowledge them as little. Like, even though we don't want to share with our sister or siblings that because it makes our parents happy, that should be something that we do. And I totally agree with you that it's those little things that you probably didn't even realize at the time that was the start of, pushing down your feelings and not acknowledging them. And I find that so many of us have gotten to the point where, we are just trying to make the best of it. And really, we're so focused on making other people happy or pleasing them that we don't have those boundaries, that we don't acknowledge our own feelings. And that's something that really inhibits our healing. And then the other thing that you brought up that makes total sense too is that, we get to that point where we know that we want to change, but then we look at all the outside circumstances or outside maybe help or whatever you want to call it that's available to us. And we say, when we get that, or if only I could do this next course, if only I could read this next book. And we keep pushing what we want today out into the future, thinking that we don't have what we need right now to be able to make those changes, that we have to wait, that, we're waiting for some outside force to come in and basically tell us what we need to do so that we can go do that. So I love that you brought up that, true healing really starts and begins with when you realize that it's all within you, that the people that come into your life or the new book or their program, that's just guidance. But it really takes you doing the work to be able to achieve that success, to be able to achieve that healing. And I know one of the biggest messages that I talk about, and we brought up in the summit a few times, is that there seems to be all these quick fixes out there. Just buy my program, just read this next book, just follow my guidance or whatever it is, that really makes all these promises that if you just do this, next week you're going to feel better, or next month you're going to be finding all the successes that you've ever looked for. So that just brings me back to the point of why I truly believe that it's the people that share those incredible stories. They're what it really took to find that healing, that, it was something that you had to decide that you wanted to do. And I believe that that only happens when you finally realize that you're enough, that you can do this. And it really is only up to you to make those changes and go within and kind of shut out a little bit of the outside world, all those things that, you said too in the marketing, that we're so bombarded with, we have to get help from somebody else, or we can't do that on our own. We have to hire this person or that person, or, buy this product, that really letting go of all that and knowing that we are enough the way that we are. And the healing starts with us, and you with all your great work that you're doing, and telling your clients that it was you. I was just here to guide you, because I think that we all need guidance, especially if we have some really deep, like you said, those core woundings take time. We're building new beliefs in ourselves. We're really acknowledging our emotions, and we can definitely use the guidance from somebody that's been through that experience, has been through that process to help us. But ultimately, we have to want to do that. And it's going to take us doing the effort to do that. And the energy that you brought up too, and that actions absolutely speak louder than words. And I agree with you that, I'm actually guilty of this. I have read hundreds of books on self-help, motivation, healing, being better. And it was all coming from a place of, I didn't believe I was good enough. So I needed to learn more. And the more I learned, the more I felt I needed to learn, because I still didn't know enough, or I didn't believe in myself. And I was reading all these books looking for those solutions on the outside. And as much as I really enjoyed them, they had amazing strategies, tools, guidance, whatever you want to call it. They were absolutely wonderful. But because I was still coming from a place of fear that I wasn't good enough, that I needed to learn more, I really didn't, use them to the best of my advantage, or what they were really meant to do. And it wasn't until I made that shift to coming back to, I'm okay where I'm at, acknowledging where I was at, and that, stuff is just not working and I need to make those changes. And I had gone to counseling, therapy, read all those books, tried different programs. And it wasn't until I acknowledged exactly where I was at and decided that I'm the only person that's going to really be able to help myself. It created that shift where all of a sudden, all those books that I read, the programs that I went through, started to make sense. And I was actually able to receive that help that I was looking for, because I had made that shift. It wasn't coming from the place of, I need all this to get better. It was, I'm ready to get better. And I know that it's going to just be me doing this. And I'm ready to have some help, some guidance. and really start that process. So I love that you bring all of that stuff up. And to the one big point I want to go back to that you brought up kind of at the beginning of your story is, I talk a lot about and truly believe that we can look at any situation or experience that we've been through, and you've shared some incredible experiences that you've gone through that a lot of people, they probably would have taken that and just held on to like a victim mentality, or that this is the way I grew up, so I can't change, or kind of not knowing really what to do with that. And I've definitely shared my own experiences of trauma and different things that I've experienced. And I love how you said you decided to use your dad as your biggest teacher. And I wholeheartedly believe that it doesn't matter what kind of experience you had, like the worst possible ones, there's always the opportunity to go back and look at it as a learning experience, that there's something good that can come out of that. You just have to figure out what that is and how it has allowed you to really take that situation and improve your life, not only your life, but really go out there and start this mission that you have to empower other ladies and other women who have gone through similar situations or struggling with stuff in their life, and really use it to empower them and make those changes so that they can help other people too. I think that's an incredible way to look at anything anybody might be going to, and really keep that in mind, that there truly is something good that can come out of everything. So I appreciate that you share that with us as well.
Well, thank you. I honestly believe that, for years I did, similar to you, I did the onion approach. We've all heard, we'll peel a layer, you go through therapy, you do what you need to do, you peel the layer and you go, oh my gosh, there's this other layer. It's there. And not that the onion approach doesn't work, but I feel like what I did, and it was divinely guided. It was not me that had this conscious awareness. I bring context to it from working with thousands of clients. I bring context of using it in my own life, but really I felt like it was divinely guided realization that if we got to the core of the onion and we got rid of the core, there might be a layer here and there that we have to work on, but as soon as it comes up, we'll go, oh, that's connected to abandonment, or that's because I'm abandoning myself, or this is coming up because I'm not feeling good enough. I'm using myself as a measuring stick, or other women as a measuring stick for me. We tend to, that's been one of the things that have been ingrained in our society, is every woman becomes our measuring stick. Every successful person even becomes our measuring stick. And so it's interesting because for years I did that onion approach. And then I realized through this divine guidance that it was about getting at the core wounding, because if we get at the core of the onion and we dissolve it, we get rid of it. When we've done this healing work, then, like I said, there will be a layer or two that comes up, but we're immediately able to consciously go, oh, I acted triggered, duh. And that means that something else is there, and go under a few layers and go, oh gosh, look, it's because I've abandoned myself. I did this. Peace to myself, which made me feel like I wasn't good enough, that I didn't matter, that I wasn't important, because I threw myself under the bus for another person again, right? We've all done that. I've done that. I've thrown myself under a lot of buses for a lot of people. And so we go back to not having to constantly heal ourselves, but to know once we've worked on those pieces, that we can be whole, that we are whole exactly the way we are. The fallacy is we've been taught we're not whole, that we're not worthy. I teach people to go back and picture, first picture, you go into a hospital, you hold a newborn baby, and you're hugging the newborn baby, and you look at the newborn baby. And now I try to tell you to tell that baby they're not worthy of everything wonderful in the world. And you can't do it, because when you hold those babies that they're so worthy of every wonderful thing in this world. Then I have you go back and I have you vision that that baby's you. You picture yourself, you're holding you as the baby. And now you tell yourself you're not worthy, but you can't. You are worthy of all those things. This is what happened before life. You know, that is who we came into this world as. And I try to teach people to get back to who they came into this world as, because that's where our greatest power lies. That's where we stand in all that we can bring in this world. And it's so great. Women have so many great divine feminine characteristics that we come into this world with. Being a nurturer, it's huge. What you put your time, attention, and love into grows. And what you don't, doesn't. And so there's a huge power in that. And we're not necessarily taught how to use that nurturing power the way we should. And nurturing ourselves and loving ourselves is huge. That's the number one step, you know, is going back and doing that. But also the realization that we hold so much more than what we've ever been taught that we hold as people, and that reclaiming our life changes the people around us when we open our heart portal, as I like to call it, but we open our hearts and we become super connected to ourselves in the moment. We change the lives of the people around us and open their hearts, whether they consciously know it or not. Us just being in their field and having an open heart, it's almost like it teaches, their heart has a remembrance of how to open. And so we get a different effect. You know, I believe it's what some of the work around power of attraction does, is that, well, I think if we went under, you know, I'm always trying to find the why and the how of things. So I'm always like, well, that's the top theory. That's like the app on top. But what's the real nitty gritty? We talked about, I used to be a computer programmer. So what's the really nitty gritty of the zeros and ones, and what's that mean, and what are we doing underneath? But I almost think that when we open our heart and we walk through the world, people respond to us differently. And, you know, the person that's usually grumpy at the coffee shop it gives you a smile. You know, they might not be overly friendly, but they smile at you when they're, you know, usually grumpy. They feel the resonance as we walk in before they even hear us or see us. They feel it, and it changes them around us. It changes our world. It changes the people around us in the most significant and amazing ways. And I believe as women, this will be how we change the world, by changing ourselves and the people around us changing. And this is the time. I mean, so many women are sold that it's about happiness. And I want to say standing in your own power, sovereignty is so much more important than happiness, because we've been sold we're happy. That's, oh my gosh, it's about you being happy. It's about joy. It's about love. Well, it is about those things in a way. And it's not that they're bad, because those are wonderful things. We all want to be happy and joyful and feel love. And it's not so, but we've been sold it in a weird way. And what I really find is it's about reclaiming your authentic self and being authentic and really connected to yourself, your emotions in the moment. And we're afraid of emotions. We're afraid of intensity. Emotions, to me, are the language of the heart. They're important. They're powerful. And they're not bad. And we've been taught to disconnect from them, that they're bad. When we heal our core wounding, we don't need to detach from them, because we're not getting triggered. And so it looks a lot different, and we're able to be our true authentic self. We don't abandon ourselves. That's number one. And we walk through the world in this way. And at first you're able to do it like 2 seconds, and then it's 2 minutes. And then it's, well, I can do it for, you know, like 45 minutes or part of the day, depending on what I'm doing. And it just becomes where you're able to do this for longer and longer periods of time. And these periods of time make a huge difference in your life. They make a huge difference in the lives of the people around us. And even though we may not be at a place that we're able to hold that for all day long, every day, it might be impossible still living and working in a closed-hearted world. But when we can do it for any length of time, and those times grow, it makes it changes us. It changes us. It changes our lives. It changes the world. And that's what I'm hoping to bring to the world. So
I think that's an amazing message and inspiring to bring to the world. I definitely have had, I think we've all had those experiences. You talk about how just being positive and coming from that place of being empowered and knowing who you are, acknowledging your emotions, which for so many of us, we've been taught that it's not good. You need to shut that stuff down and not be emotional. But we've all been to that place where we've either had somebody walk into the room and you just feel good. Like you just feel excited to see them and they bring that great energy with them, or you've been able to help somebody in that way and somebody else has come up to you and said, I just kind of really like being around you. I'm not sure why, but it just feels good. And I think that's so key, that we pick up on things that we're not even aware of, but our body will tell us, just in that using that energy and being positive as well. And I love that visualization that you had with the babies, because who could tell a sweet little innocent baby that they didn't deserve everything this world has to offer. And I think that's one of the key things too, that we're meant to find that again, because we lose it as we go through life. And I think that's one of the things that brings us back to that empowerment, having everything, that joy that comes along with it, is really remembering who we are and that we are capable of doing anything we want in this life. And we just have to find that and run with it again. So thank you for sharing your wonderful messages with us, all that inspiring visualization that people can try at home, and everything else that you're doing to share your messages from that place of having gone through it and done your work, done your healing, and really walking that walk and sharing those messages. So is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience today?
I think I'd like to say that it starts small through actions. So not abandoning yourself through actions, really listening to your heart, not your head. Your head screams, your heart first. Listen to your heart, ask yourself what you need. Stop throwing yourself under the bus. Don't dismiss you. You are important. You are very, very important. And when you start to do that, you become your greatest healer and you become your greatest hero. And you are the hero you've always searched all those men for throughout your lifetime, or all those stories that we've read that we've always went, oh, and we've swooned over. You are that. You are that hero. You are that. And so you go every day, little piece by little piece, showing yourself that you are important and you are wonderful and you are amazing. And listen to what you need.
I think that is an amazing message to end on, and I appreciate that so much. I know that you have a free gift for the audience, that if they sign up for your email, that they can receive a free meditation. Do you want to chat a little bit about that, about what your meditation is?
Yes, one of the things that I use a lot of meditations. I use a lot of visualizations, because it not only, I used to teach neuropsych and taught college classes for years, and so I was a computer programmer in a lifetime long ago. No, yeah, before I went back to grad school. But I really believe in that visualization. I study a lot of sports psychology, but the visualization and meditations that we use are almost as if they transcend time and space. They're kind of magical to me in a way, and the way I teach them, to me, are magical. And one of the first steps of the healing process is learning to surround yourself in unconditional love daily. And that is the first audio. And that's what people would get, is this little meditation that teaches us every day to surround ourselves in unconditional love and what that feels like. And so that would be the free gift that they would be getting.
That's awesome. I know so many of us could use that every day. So all you have to do is pop back on to the email that you received today for our interview. And we are going to have all the links to Cathy's website, to all her social media channels, and the free audio where you can sign up for her email and get that free meditation. So all you have to do is click the links in that email and get connected with her. I know that you have much more amazing stuff coming up that's going to be available very soon on your website for the audience that they can use. So keep watching for that. And if you do sign up for that meditation, you'll get notice. I'm sure that the new stuff is up and ready for you guys to take advantage of. So Cathy, just really appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule to be here with us today and share all this amazing insight and strategies with us so that people can really, go within, and that it only takes small steps every day, and they're going to start to build, and you're going to see amazing results very soon. So thank you for sharing all that with us today, Cathy.
Thank you for having me, Nicole, and thank you for everybody listening. And this is your life. Reclaim it. Stand in your own power.